Alrighty. Looks like we're on. Are we on? We are on live video. Event logs. Is that what I'm looking for? Facebook has not received video signal from the source. Okay, that's weird. Comments. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Interesting. Okay, best is on. I can pin it. Oh, cool. So guys, I'm just looking at all the functionality of the new and improved Facebook. They updated. So this is just interesting looking at everything. So give me 1 second here and then we will get rolling in about 10 seconds. Okay, so today we are on, Marty, what's happening? Fearless Friday. I heard Never Ending Friday. And it is the last Friday of the month of August, which is actually even hard to believe, right? So typically I invite a bunch of people on here, but this doesn't seem to have the functionality to invite a bunch of people on here, so that's weird. I was able to make comments, and I'm able to write a comment, but I'm not able to click on anybody, which is so weird. But that's okay. We'll make it happen anyway. I'm going to go on Facebook over here on my phone and see if I can just send out these invites here real quick. So bear with me 2 seconds, or maybe 3. There it is. Dave Roeder's here. What's up, sir? I need to put on Brandon Coyle, and where's the other one? Josh, and the other Josh. And the other Josh, Jason. That's already here. Okay, guys, we'll go ahead and get rolling. Freedom Friday. I like that one too. Anybody ever had Friday? Never Ending Friday? Never Ending Friday. That was actually Jim Bailey. That was who I was actually going to put on here. Jim Bailey. And we'll tag Becky. Oh, she's not on here either. Okay. We're all good. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Today is Friday, and we are going over the book. Good leaders ask great questions. I always kind of screw that up. Good leaders ask great questions. And Tony Robbins says the quality of your life is the quality of the questions you ask yourself. And if you don't know that you ask yourself questions, you just ask yourself a question. That's just how it works. You constantly evaluating and asking questions, and really the quality of your life depends on those kind of questions and what you're asking and what you're going to get. So chapter 3 is, what questions do I ask my team members? Because obviously, if you're building a team inside of direct sales, it's going to be really, really important the questions you ask them, and then evaluating what you get back and asking more questions. So never miss a chance to keep your mouth shut. That's actually Robert Newton Peck. He says, never miss a chance to keep your mouth shut. Why is that? Because if you have nothing to add that's positive, I have a lot of people who just want to talk, and what they'll do is they'll add something in that has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about. And then everybody looks at them weird, and they got part of what they wanted. They got attention. It just wasn't the right kind of attention. It says, how good of a listener are you? You know, that's probably the number one key to building a big business is listening to the people, asking great questions, then listening to the people and evaluating what you get. So 3 levels of listening. One is internal listening. That's the lowest level. It says, what does this mean to me? So somebody's talking and you're, thinking through what's going on and, what does this mean to me? How does this affect me? So anytime you're focusing on yourself, it's kind of the lowest level of really anything. The second is focus listening. We engage, not just in words and emotions, but in affections, facial expressions, posture. People are attracted to that kind of listener. So just acknowledgement. Okay, I gotcha. I see. You can say very little, but you're following along with what's going on. Nowadays, it's very hard and difficult to have these conversations with people because everybody's like this. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Everybody has their face in their phone. And we actually went to dinner last night, and from now on, this will probably happen Fridays, it was Thursday, but Fridays we were talking about going out every Friday to have dinner, just kind of like date night, and date night is going to require no phones. Just because it's gotten to be such a distraction, you're just constantly looking down. So, are you distracted? Are you interactive? People are attracted to that kind of listener that's interactive, that's ongoing. So, 3 is global listening. This is the highest level. This is a level that takes into account the actions, the inactions, the interactions of the people involved. You're kind of evaluating everything. Read the room and who's in it. So when you're, basically sitting. Now I know this from martial arts. When you enter a room and you're trying to get a seat in a restaurant, or you're trying to get a seat in someone's house to talk to them, what I always try to do is position myself. Now, if I'm in their house, I'll go to wherever they, feel comfortable and want me to sit. But inside of a restaurant, I'm always sitting with my back in a way where I've got the best view of everything going on, including the ways to get out. Just smart, to do regardless, and teach your kids that kind of thing. Why is that? In martial arts, it says, always be prepared. Always be prepared for whatever's going on. Whether good, bad, fire, crazy person. Always be prepared. It's funny because that's the first thing they basically tell you inside of a plane. It's like, these are the exits. You want to know where those are. You want to know how that works, and you want to start asking questions if you don't. Hey, where are the exits? Not that you're trying to run out of the restaurant, but you know what I mean. Read people, read the room, read the situation. Intuition. Intuition is looking inward. Intuition gives you a lot of things. Like, I feel uneasy, uncomfortable. This doesn't make sense. Like, I don't like sitting with my back to the door, especially if I'm right next to the door or if I'm really far away, because then I can't see anything that's going on. Can't evaluate what's happening. The power of listening. But what I do want to do is I want to sit with my back to the wall. So I'm actually in kind of a longer room right now. I want to sit with my back to the wall. And if I had another person, they'd be sitting on the other side. So what happens is I have the evaluation of the entire room and what's going on and distractions and whatever, but they don't. They're just, kind of focused on what's going on. So control your environment is what I'm trying to say, especially if you're presenting. We did a lot of lunch meetings. And I've watched a lot of people do a lot of lunch meetings, and a lot of people do lunch meetings where the person speaking, like me, and this is a window to the outside, or this is a window to the line in the restaurant, and you can just see people's eyes like, whoop, whoop. That they're constantly looking at what's going on. Where whenever I put things together, I learned that you basically put the presentation where there's nothing else to see but the presentation, unless you're just looking at like wall art or wallpaper. And most people would rather look at something moving and, somebody talking. Food for thought, right? So the power of listening, the benefits of listening. Listening demonstrates that you value others. Being heard is so close to being loved that to the average person, it's almost indistinguishable. That was David Augusberger, if I said that right. When you listen to others, you are saying, I care and I value you. So being able to, obviously we have 2 ears, 1 mouth. That should tell you something right there. We have them on either side, so that way we can kind of listen and figure out what's going on. I'm sure that's also so we don't get eaten if we were living outside. Listening has high influence and high value. Listening has high influence value. If you want to influence others, use your ears. It's better to be interested than interesting, meaning it's better to listen to someone and ask questions about them than it is to tell them who and what's going on. Listen to leads and learning. And here's the thing, when you are talking, some people don't know how to give what they need to give and then turn it around. Hey, here's who I am, here's what I do, and now I want to get into what you do and spend the majority of the time there. So there is kind of a neat dynamic too when you're first meeting somebody that you can open up the conversation in a way by introducing yourself, which isn't listening in the beginning, but then turning it around. Because of what you share and because of how you share, you have the ability to control the rest of the conversation. And a lot of people, that's new to them. That's a trick to them. So being able to tell your story in a unique way. Got a really good friend. That's kind of what she teaches people how to do inside of a business setting. Is she actually teaches people how to tell their story strategically that will grab that attention, that will grab people's complete attention would be what I was trying to say. It grabs their complete attention where now they're focused on what's going on and they have the ability to then turn around. So Marty's here. What's up? Andrew's here. Shamala's here. Dave Roeder. 2 years. Yep. Okay. Just making sure we got everybody here. My listening list. Do I have an open ear policy? We're talking about team building. Do I have an open ear policy? Hey, no matter what you have, call me. No matter what you have, text me. I have a unique person on my team that's actually been in and currently in more than one company, which isn't always the best, but like that's just how it is. She found us after she had been with a big company for quite a long time. One thing that she constantly will repeat anytime I've talked to her is she's like, "Wow, I'm kind of impressed that any time I've ever asked a question, you immediately get back to me and you call and just confirm and make sure." She's like, "You're actually listening to what's going on." She's like, "That's really rare in this industry." So it just points out that by doing that, certain people are watching what's going on. Because sometimes people won't even say that to you. She's just kind of confirming, "Hey, this is abnormal for the industry." Do I interrupt? So there are certain cases when you're with friends where it's cool and it's fine. Typically, I try not to, but here's the thing. Anybody that has ADHD, I do, you're going to have a more difficult time just keeping quiet. And if you do interrupt, which sometimes happens, you're going to say you're sorry and then confirm what they were saying and then go back to what they're saying. Sometimes I'm like, "Hey, before I forget, because, thoughts go through so fast." This is why John Maxwell said, always have a notebook with you. And I think that's because John Maxwell also probably has some ADHD. I'm guessing he's kind of said stuff like that from stage. He hasn't come out and said ADHD. And no, I'm not diagnosing John Maxwell. But I can kind of see that his brain works really, really fast. And he said he always keeps a notebook with him. So that way he can jot down ideas and or questions as he's having a conversation with somebody. And then he can recall. Let them finish. And I've watched him do this. Like it is super impressive. And obviously he got really good because he's been doing it for 50 years. So don't interrupt. 3, do I want to hear do I want to hear what I need to hear? Or are you listening for what you need to be listening for is another way to kind of state that. Are you getting out of it what you need to get out of it? Sometimes I'll listen to people in the beginning and I'm just trying to figure out what is their personality and where are they going with this? Because some people will tell stories and their story really is a question. But sometimes it's hard to figure out, like, what are you asking me? I have some friends that you talk to. I don't know if you have these friends. And they're like, and then this time, and then, you know what I mean? I'm like, no, I have no idea what you mean. I don't even think you completed a sentence. I don't know what you're talking about. But I'm interested. So clarify, what the heck are you talking to me about? Because they kind of jump around. My question for the team is, good leaders ask questions that inspire others to dream more, think more, learn more, do more, and become more. So, the new month starting. So here's some questions. How did your month go? How did your month go? What are you working on? What did you complete this month that you're, excited about? What are you going to do next month? So I've found that the best leaders evaluate what just happened. First of all, they clear the air. And clear the air meaning, how are you right now? Like, what's going on right now? Before we get into all these other questions, what's going on right now? Is everything kind of stable in your life, really? And nothing's ever perfectly stable, but I mean, is just kind of asking, is the house on fire? Is there anybody in the hospital? Is there anybody that you've recently got a call? Because I mean, sometimes that's where people's lives are, is the car's on fire, the house is on fire, the family has all these issues. And then you're trying to ask questions about business and it just doesn't go anywhere. And you're like, I don't know what's wrong. This business just isn't going. I was like, well, the first thing you forgot to do was evaluate where this person's at before you start asking them questions. Are they at a level of distraction? Are they a 1 or are they a 10 in distraction? Meaning, a level 10 in distraction is there's 4 or 5 major issues going on, and they're not going to hear anything you say. A 1 is they're listening to everything you say because what you're talking about is more exciting than anything that's going on in their life. You have to get that evaluation first before you go into these questions. But then once you go into these questions, I found that really good leaders are evaluating what you just did, because leaders are always accountable to what's going on. What did you just do? What did you say you were going to do? What did you get done? And then what are you doing in the future? They spend the majority of the time talking about what you're doing in the future and how you're going to do it better or bigger. What do you think? So getting into these questions, what do you think? Gathering information, confirming my intuition, assessing someone's judgment of leadership. Where's this person at? Are they a me person? Because that's where most people are at, right? And you'll find that the younger a person is, meaning not like 20, but like younger a person is in like when you grow up, the younger a person is, the more they're into themselves. It's not until, past 15. So it says the first 7 years, I believe this is right. The first 7 years, you're basically building your self-conscious. From 7 to 14, you're kind of building your more logic. And from 14-ish, 13-ish to 21, you're building your emotional, interaction state would be another way to put it, your emotional state, to be able to understand how to interact with everybody and evaluate everything. And what you'll find is a lot of times the younger someone is, the more they're into themselves, because they haven't learned how to, be okay with themselves. So they're not going to be okay with everybody else, right? Steve Redden, what's happening, sir? Happy Friday. So gathering information, confirming information, assessing someone's judgment of leadership, teaching people how I think. So that's one of the things John does. He's like, well, here's how I look at a situation. And it is different than what I grew up with. I grew up with, me. So looking at it from, okay, I'm okay. Now I need to evaluate everybody else. That was just totally different way to think. It was totally different way to say stuff. 2, how can I serve you? How can I help? That's basically it seems like John just walks around. How can I help? Who can I connect you with? What can I teach you? What resources can I give you? He always talks about equipping people. What resources can I give you? And that's kind of what I'm learning to connect people. I'm learning it's not about you. And this is one of the key things that I've learned. If you want influence, give first. It's called the law of reciprocity. You give first. If you give first and you constantly give and you didn't ask for anything back, what ends up happening is you start to have influence over, because then when you do ask, they feel a moral obligation to at least reciprocate in some way. They might not do everything they want you to do, but you can get their time, you can get their ear. 3, what do I need to communicate? Some people like to talk just to talk. And unfortunately, sometimes they'll talk for a long period of time and they don't communicate anything about what they should actually be talking about. I've had conversations like this with people, and eventually, the busier you get, if it doesn't come to a conclusion, you start avoiding those conversations because you're just taking up time. Now, you have to be careful. John says, it's an 80-20 rule. 20% of your people will produce 80% of your production in business. So you have to be careful the people who are taking up your time versus the ones who are actually producing what's going on. And John kind of talks about this, but it's also very true inside of direct sales, network marketing, or building any team. You usually want to go where you're not needed, meaning you want to go to the producers and have the majority of the conversation with the people who can bring business in. You're not having conversations with the people who are just talking about doing stuff, meaning they're not actually physically doing anything. The rule of 5. So John gets into this rule of 5 about his everyday, and I don't even know why I put that here, but, he reads, he writes, he thinks, he asks questions, and he files. So 5, what did you learn? Um, and this is kind of questions that he asks people. He said, what did you love? What did you learn? So this is really good evaluation after every event. If you're talking to people, you're like, okay, we just got out of this event. What did you like best about the event? By hearing what people like best, you find out, especially if there were a lot of speakers, this is great to ask after a convention or a regional or Super Saturday, if they call it that, whatever they call your events. What did you like best? After a training, what did you like best? I mean, it should be something that you just get really, really comfortable asking people. What did you like best? Now, here's how I started. I didn't have a team. I didn't have prospects. But I learned how to ask a question to the leadership. Other leaders that were in the room. Hey, what did you like best? I mean, I went to the person that had the most people on the team. Hey, what did you like best about that? And what's funny is they would always tell me something that I didn't hear. Imagine that. Why? Because I wasn't at a level where that's what I was looking for or needed. But I started learning really fast to listen for different things because I started asking the question, what did you like best? And people always seem to like things that I didn't like. That was also an eye opener. I was like, they're like, oh, I really like that one story. And I'd be like, I didn't even hear that story. Why didn't I hear that story? We have personalities that are different. So I started learning personalities. I started learning what other people liked. Oh, I really liked what that person was wearing. I'll be real honest, I can't even remember what they were wearing. I mean, I know they had clothes on, but that was about as far as I got. I was like, what are you talking about what they were wearing? They're like, oh, I really like the kind of tie and the suit. And I was like, yeah, I didn't get any of that. I really like their jewelry. I mean, just all these different things that I wasn't picking up on. Why? Because I was never asking the question. So what I realized is I was missing so much of life because I didn't know how to ask the right questions and evaluate and look for things that other people were looking at. I was just looking at it from kind of my own glasses. If you had glasses on, this is just such a great analogy. I learned this from Dr. Robert Rome, who wrote the book Personality Profiling. He said if everybody had glasses that were a different color, meaning if my glasses were blue, and let's say Steve Redden's are red, we're going to look at the same situation and see different things. Why? Because we're looking at it through our own lenses, our own filters. Where I'm like, oh man, those blues were great. Steve would be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I saw red. Same situation, we're seeing different things. We're also at different places with different personalities. So this is the kind of stuff you're evaluating and trying to figure out if you're in a leadership position or want to be in a leadership position, eventually getting to a point where you can evaluate all this stuff, which is kind of cool and confusing. So what did you learn? What did you love? Experience isn't the best teacher. Evaluated experience is. So that's why you're asking after events, what did you like best? Did we add value? So after an event, it's one of the good questions to ask. Did we add value here? What did we add to people's lives? Did we inspire? Did we give hope? Did we give technique? Did we give skill? What did we give? Do we just take people's time? What do we do? It's good to ask those questions. Slow down and focus on the people. That's, something for somebody who has ADHD, somebody who is a D-type personality. I didn't understand this part. There were a lot of things I didn't understand. This was just one of them. 7, how do we maximize this experience? So that's where we start asking the questions of, okay, what do you like best? But then, what did we do well? What did we do well, or what did we do exceptional? Like, what went over really, really well? Well, we started on time. Okay, that's a good one. What do we not do well is actually as important. Okay, so these are the things we did well. This is what do we need to improve? Well, this wasn't ready. Okay, so preparation. We didn't end on time. I mean, we were way off. Okay, well, we need a bell, we need a clock, we need a light. We need to start ending when we're supposed to end. And there are times that it makes sense to go over a little bit, but I've seen our presentations that go for 2.5 hours. That's too much. Like you went from excited to annoyed. That's not a good way to leave events. What do I need to know? Which is always important. How do we make the most of this opportunity? That's a good question. I mean, inside of your team, group, whatever, how do I make the most out of this opportunity? In most cases, um, you're going to need the largest, most recruits to make the most out of most opportunities in direct sales. How are the numbers? Now, that's a good question to ask. If you're trying to grow a group, grow a team, and you're looking at where you're at, you'll find that the people who build the fastest are looking at their numbers when? At the end of the month? No. Well, yes, but that's not the only time. They're looking at the numbers every day. Um, what's interesting is people like Grant Cardone talk about looking at the numbers several times a day. He absolutely looks at them first thing in the morning. He absolutely looks at them in the evening, but he looks at them throughout the whole day. Where are we at? What are the numbers? If you're only looking at them at the end of the month, then you're really evaluating what's already done. So therefore, it's very hard to change what's already done. You need to evaluate in the moment, like what's going on every single morning. Hey, here's what the objective is. Halfway through the day, where am I at? At the end of the day, what did I accomplish? What went good? All these questions, right? How are your numbers? 11, what am I missing? This was the question I asked. Okay, so I had a couple different mentors, and one of the gentlemen that I met, he had built to $1 million 5 different times in 5 different companies. And if you know me well, you might actually know who I'm talking about. The first time he built to $1 million, he was 21. Was out for a minute and then got back in something else and built to $1 million again by the time he was 23, 24. Then did it again at 27. So I met him when he was 34, I believe. Had already built to $1 million income, and it took him 13 months to go from zero to over $83,333 in a month. 13 months. I was like, okay. I know how to do certain things. Like I know how to do the presentation, I know how to do the training. I'm like, I actually know how to recruit. And he's like, well, how many people have you recruited? And I can't remember what the number is. Over 70 people. He's like, what? He's like, you've personally been able to recruit over 70 people. I said, yes. I said, but what I'm not able to do is I don't know how to dig through. And he's like, we talked about that. I said, what am I missing? He goes, here's what's interesting. I've helped about 100 people make $1 million in this industry. He goes, maybe you're not missing anything. Maybe you're just missing the fact that you're not missing anything. And that was just like eye-opening to me. Eventually we got down to it, and he's like, well, and he said it really weird, so I'm going to try to rephrase this. He's like, so you know how to hit a home run once, but you can't teach anybody else to hit a home run. And I was like, oh, wow, I never looked at it like that. He's like, look, if you know how to hit a home run, you can teach other people how to hit a home run. You're just not teaching them how to hit a home run. I was like, okay. Like, it still took me a while to figure it out, but eventually we figured out that I was doing too much. I was saying too much in the very beginning. And he's like, no. Your goal is to help them recruit one and then get them to an event. So it was all about getting people to events to be able to duplicate. He's like, stop trying to spend so much time with the individual and drive these individuals. If you're getting a bunch of people, you don't have time to train them all. Drive them to one event and train them. And here's the other thing, have somebody else train them. That was kind of hard for me because I was like, well, aren't I supposed to know how to do this? He goes, yes, but front line, watch this, front line, you have the least impact because you know them. Front line, you have the least impact. You're going to have more impact in depth than you will front line. But the problem is you'll be better friends with the people front line than a lot of times you will with the people in depth. So you spend the majority of the time with the people you feel comfortable with, not the people you feel uncomfortable with. Got to spend more time with the people you feel uncomfortable with. I was like, this conversation, this car ride, was worth $1 million to me because that's what started teaching me how to break that taught me how to break through a couple different levels, including helping other people promote inside of companies and things like that. So it's very, very valuable information. So we have a couple more questions and then we're going to wrap this up like a burrito because it's 12:12 and we're going to go a little bit over. 2 of the fastest ways to connect another person are to ask questions and ask for help. Okay. Give birth to great questions. The key to magical evenings is He said good questions. I said great questions. The key to magical evenings is good questions. And he said nothing's better than sitting around a meal and asking questions and getting this feedback from all these different people. Great questions. Questions related to how people can lead themselves successfully. So these are questions you want to ask yourself. Why does leading myself seem to be more difficult than leading others? And that's up for you to decide. What drives a leader's sustainability? What drives a leader's sustainability? How do you stay on track? Because most people can't stay on track for very long. What are most important? So 3. What are the most important values for a leader? What are the most important values for a leader? I mean, it would make sense that put others first, right? But what are some other ones? What is the most effective daily habit for any leader to develop? What is the most effective habit? I would think John would talk about gratitude and growth. I would think that's what I mean, I don't know for sure, but I kind of know for sure because I've read so many of his books and, heard him speak. And, when I met him, that's kind of what he talked about. Gratitude, being thankful for where you're at, I think is so important because, obviously he comes from a faith background. So I know he believes, in a higher power, and he's like, you kind of need to give thanks. You kind of need to have gratitude for where you're at. People are like, oh my God, it's so bad out. It's so bad out. Really, it's so bad out here. But it's not bad in Bangladesh. I'm sure the people in Bangladesh would trade places. Like if you're on here watching this, no matter what your situation, some people in Bangladesh, the people in Syria would probably trade places with you in a second. I heard a long time ago, they said if we threw all of our problems into a pile, you'd probably want yours back. You'd probably want yours back. Like when you see what everybody else is going through and you're complaining about, you probably want your problems back because you're like, your problems are probably easier to deal with than other people's. It's just how are you dealing with them? Experience is best teacher. We talked about that. Did we add value? That's a constant question you want to ask yourself, and John asked. Did I move this? Yes, I did. Drives a leader. What is the most effective daily habit for a leader to develop? I would say growth and gratitude. 5, how does one change one's heart to increase the desire to add value to serve others? I mean, go help somebody. That's. We were just talking about this. A friend of mine, new friend from Facebook, we met and we had a Zoom conversation yesterday, just kind of get to know each other. And that's kind of what we talked about. He's like, well, I want to put together a sustainable program where it's more about giving. He said, if the people who are hurting, which is true, we were talking specifically about PTSD, if the people are hurting would start to focus on helping others, it wouldn't eliminate it, but it would change it. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point. 6, if I'm reaching goals and achieving success, why should I take care of developing myself as a leader? Because you'll only get so far. And what are you teaching the team to do? You're teaching the team who might have lower level skills than you to stay put rather than achieve more. So you're not going to be a success for long, is what I'm saying. 7, how do I lead with humility when the tough corporate world, it's viewed as a weakness? So how do you keep leading? My thing is to start your own business and get out. 8, how transparent should a leader be? Is it okay for the team to know personal challenges such as sickness, cancer, death in a family? It's different for everybody. And here's the thing. What I can say is you only share that stuff with the people who can handle that stuff and at the time they can handle it. I have people who would walk up to me at the very, very beginning of an event and tell me some of the most horrible stuff you could possibly imagine. And meanwhile, I'm trying to keep my emotional composure and my thought process on the task at hand of what I need to do. And they're sitting here telling me about people who are dying and the sickness and cancer. And, obviously I was building the first time really hard. I was building the first time during 2007, 8, and 9. Well, really 8, 9, 10. And, people would walk up, oh, the bank called and the sheriff came and I lost my house today. What should I do? And this is like right before I'm supposed to be on like stage, really. Sometimes it was a stage, sometimes it was in the front of the room, talking to everybody about the opportunity. Like, well, that's a conversation for another time. But people would ask stuff like that, just completely inappropriate questions at inappropriate times. It wasn't an inappropriate question. It was just like, what do I do? Isn't an inappropriate question. It's just an inappropriate time to ask that question. How transparent should you be? 9, the leadership process is a long journey lasting a lifetime. How can I overcome the loneliness? So when you're constantly trying to lead, it can feel lonely in moments only because you're stretching ahead of everybody. So this is where 2 things are good. Number 1, you have lower level leadership that you built in. Number 2, you have mentors / coaches to be around who are at levels higher than you. Because then you have, what happens is you forget where you're going. When you have mentors really more than coaches. When you have mentors, people who have been there, people who have done that, you don't feel as lonely because you're like, I know where I'm going. A coach sometimes can't point you in that direction because they haven't been there. They can ask you questions about where you think you should be going, but that doesn't solve necessarily the path that you need to be on all the time. Because if you're at a confused state and you start asking questions about where you should go, and like, I'm having that problem because I see 3, 5, 10 paths. Which one's best? Well, that's what I'm trying to evaluate. So you see how a coach can keep asking questions versus a mentor who says, I've been there before. This is the direction you want to go. Okay, now I can relax because I know I'm on the right path. That's the difference. So very important who you go get answers from. So we're on 9. 10, and this is the last one. How can leaders develop the ability to filter their emotions to make good leadership decisions? Like, how do you control the emotional side? That's one of the hardest ones. Like, how do you control the emotional side of everything that's going on while you're trying to lead? You got to be around great people to understand how they've done it. You also have to understand your personality. Because if you understand your personality, sometimes if you need to get emotional, be emotional, you can have that time and you get that out of your system to come on stage. Because sometimes you have to perform under not so good things. So I got a call, I remember this night specifically because we were at a training. I get this call and, my mom's like, I'm going up. We just got the call. Grandma's not good. Like, the hospice people have called and said it's not going to be long. I'm like, okay, we'll get there. Tell me what's going on. Evaluate. I'm going to do this training. So I started doing the training. And I kind of ended it short because we did it in 2 parts and I handed it off and I looked down at my phone and my mom's like, get here. That's all it said. So you kind of know. So I'm like, hey, family, got to go. Didn't share anything. Got to just run. So I had to keep my composure during that time. But afterwards, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get there as fast as possible. I walked in the room the moment she went. My mom was already there. I walked in the room, gone, just like that. The nurse is like, that's it. So it was, bittersweet that we were there, but at the same time, obviously emotional because you're losing a family member. My mom was more of a mess, obviously, than I was just because of distance and, closeness. And personality. We have different personalities. I was very happy that we were there. I was very happy, not happy that she was gone, but how do you control that emotion? Because you're going to have stuff like that. Here's the thing. People think, oh, you don't understand what I'm going through. There's a bunch of people going through stuff. They're just not sharing it necessarily on stage in front of you at the same time. It's different for everybody. I'm not telling you how to deal with it. It's different for everybody, but you have to figure that out, decide that. So that is a wrap. That's chapter 3 of Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. Obviously, this is an amazing book because if you're with different people asking these questions, you're going to get different answers every time. And that's kind of the cool thing about asking the questions is you will get different answers every time and be able to understand different things. So I appreciate everybody for being on. We went a little long. Have a great weekend. For those of you who are joining us on Sunday, for our school, the MLM Millionaire Academy, along with the leads class. If you're involved in that, want to know how to get to people you don't know, people like, I'm having trouble sponsoring. I can't talk to the people. I've already ran through everybody. We've got a class for that. The basics, how to build, we have a class for that. So jump on there, or get information about jumping on there if you're not already part of the class, and we provide great stuff. So with that being said, have a great weekend, and we'll go over chapter 4 on Monday. Thank you, guys. Do you want to end this video?